Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about as far as how to make the Brat sort of sound, right, is the BPM at 130 to 140, maybe 145, and then the drums. Now, when you hear these, it's not quite like that typical super 909-y, like house, you know, kind of like 90s modern revival stuff you're hearing a lot. It's these more kind of like juicy, almost like EDM drums. Right, so it starts with the kick. Listening to the album, a lot of the kicks that A.G. Cook was going for were really more like these softer kind of kicks, right? It's not the big, like, punchy 909. Now, you can see it still has a huge transient, and it hits really hard. But it just isn't that, like, you know, that kind of, like, thing that we've been hearing a lot. So I think that's part of what makes this music really refreshing is, like, a lot of interesting sound choices. Also with the hi-hats. Right, everything's really short. Like the kick I made a bit shorter. This hi-hat I made a bit shorter. These hi-hats I made a bit shorter as well. I pitched them up and then I made them really short. With the envelope like that. Also with the kick I pitched it to be in key with the bass. So they're not going to clash. Then we move down to the clap. This one, I actually pulled it out of a loop, and I just kind of like found this one clap that I really liked. It was just really full. And it sits over the kick well, too. Like this kind of groove. With the longer clap really works. We also have a little bit of percussion. Right, so these are kind of more like these classic house sort of loops. And they're being high passed. I tried a little auto pan on this, but honestly, listening to Brat, I think it's a lot more like these kind of loops. It sounds like they're just kind of letting them fly. You know, and it's not the same as a thing like when you're making tech house or something like that, where you want it to just be like the kick is just the king of the whole mix. Like, it can sit back a little bit, especially listening to the album. I noticed that. Like, if you listen to this whole mix, the kick isn't necessarily the star, right? But it works really well, and it all works like relative too. Like if you have a bass line, like this one, which is a bit shorter and smaller, these drums can feel really huge as well, right? It's all about how this stuff feels like relative to itself. Then we move down to the bass line. So the bass line is like this. We're in the key of F minor, right? We're walking up to that F minor, and we're going 5, 6, 7 root. And it's also that rhythm too. Like you can hear it really bounces well with the kick. So yeah, this is super Brat chord progression. They use this a ton on the album. And again, yeah, it's just this thing where you're walking up to a root note within like 2 bars. So it feels really urgent and kind of quick and steady, right? So for the actual sound on this one, it's made with wavetable. There's a lot of wavetable synthesis on this album, I heard. What we're doing here is we got a sub. Plus the sine wave, although it doesn't sound like a sine wave because you can see we have the fold and the warp turned up. And then we got this envelope like kind of with a bit of attack into the fold. So it's folding the waveform and it's creating this like juicy kind of thing. You put it with the sub. And it's a really full and fat bass. We got this low pass, which then has this envelope on it so you get the tight kind of pluck bass. I heard this a lot on the album. And then I've sidechained that to the kick. Then we got these chords. It's the same progression you just saw the bass play. It's even the same notes except for these little short notes. Obviously the chords aren't playing, so you kind of get those working together. You know, the down, 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 down into the chord. creates a lot of groove, right? Especially if you start to put that with the kick. Right, this is a lot of what this track is resting on. So what we're doing here is it's the same progression. I've taken these and kind of spread them out as chords. These are dyads, meaning chords with 2 notes. So you're taking the root and the third, basically, kind of like the note that says which chord it is, and then the note which says which kind of chord it is, right? So here, it's C minor, C sharp major, C sharp major, D sharp major, F minor again. And then these here are the same. I've just taken those thirds and put them down an octave, so you kind of get like a cool groove between that. And yeah, there's a lot of these kind of chord stabs on this album, and that's really how you do those. Now, for the sound on this one, it's wavetable. It's this piano wavetable. I do have an envelope on the filter, but I didn't end up using it, but it allows you to do like... right? The random note unison as well. I've noticed this one really sounds like that kind of... Also, position sync can also give you that. See, we don't, you know... And then if you turn off the unison, it's still cool, but obviously this really gives it that sort of sound. A bit of reverb. Now, a lot of the reverb, there is a lot of reverb on this album and on these songs. It's just the reverb's really short. That's kind of the thing I learned. It's like, it has, like, it's in a room, but it's just not like a huge cave. So I got the size down, I got the decay down. Try to wet about halfway. And then we have OTT. Now, this is a good secret to get these kind of sounds, because there's a lot of these really, like, bright, sharp, you know, juicy sort of sounds on the album. And this is a good way to get that. If I turn it off, see, it's very close without it, but with it, it just gives it that extra, like, over compressed, over, like, juiced up kind of sound. So, and you can find that if you've never seen that before. I'm sure a lot of you guys have, but in case you haven't, it's just one of the presets for Ableton's multi-band dynamics, but it's a very famous sound using that, like on wavetable synths like this. Sidechain to the kick, high pass so it doesn't get in the way of the bass line. Then we got this. Now this is playing its own melody. It's not really following those chords at all, as you can see. Like, it's pretty different, but it basically fills in with that. Right, and you see this here could go up to this note. Right, but I kind of thought it sounded cool just keeping it on that. Right, you hear that kind of down, down, and it feels a little more angsty, but if you put it up, and it could also resolve. Right, it's really just what you want to do. I like playing with that kind of thing in the musicality. For the sound on this one, so it's meant to kind of fit with that last one, but also stand on its own, right? These are really meant to sound like kind of one stack. Like you put this with the chords and then with the bass. Right, so what it is it's this A-E-I-O-U wavetable, so like one of the vocal ones, and then also the piano wavetable. Position sync spread unison, but I've got the voices down to the minimum and the amount at the maximum. It's a subtle bit of unison, but it does add quite a bit. A bit of chorus, again a short reverb, more OTT, and an important thing with OTT sometimes is this time. See, the reverb gets a little too long when it is getting like really, really compressed like that. But if you turn up the time, you can kind of like, you know, keep it from like attacking the time and like really messing up the reverb. But you still get that kind of like juicy, bright OTT sound. Sidechain to the kick, high pass filter. Then we move down to this lead pluck thing. Now, this might seem kind of like scary. It's pretty simple. What it is, it's two melodies. So it's like this. Right, and then I've also got this little chord progression going under it, which is just the same chord progression you saw just now with the bass and the chords. Right, and they fit together nicely and kind of create this nice groove. This can play on its own, and then you can play it with everything, and it's very impactful. Another thing is, like, you know, the bass and the synths, chords, and like this little lead that goes with the chords. They're very open and very like bright stuff, and then you take this pluck over top of it. It's kind of an interesting juxtaposition that the loudest and biggest sound is actually kind of the most chill, subdued one, right? So, you know, it's not always just how do I make giant chord steps. It's also like, how could you, I think another thing like with the Brat album and that kind of sound is like, things that kind of shouldn't be, but they are. You know, like I said, like the quiet little synth pluck is the loudest thing that you hear, and then all this stuff kind of goes and it's just part of the background. So for the sound on this one, it's this square wave and then this piano wavetable. I really like that wavetable inside of Ableton's wavetable. I've got an envelope on the filter frequency, just a tight pluck. It's a really simple sort of synth pluck. It's basically a square wave with just a little bit of texture over top. I got this precision spread unison, and the voice is up all the way, amount like a little over half. A little bit of ping pong delay, which just helps spread it out, but it's not really like in your face. You can hear it does give a nice rhythm to it a little bit though, like kind of as like a backbeat. We get this reverb, super short again, OTT, time all the way up. And then I got the Haas effect. So the Haas effect is part of what's making this so big. Even though it is a quieter, quote-unquote, more chill sound than the other stuff, it is so in your face because the Haas effect takes it and spreads it out really wide. It's a really simple way of saying basically you have one side of the left ear is got no effects on it, and then the right ear, you have a really, really fast delay that you don't really hear like a delay. You just hear all of a sudden it's like, you know, it's not very noticeable necessarily. But this effect is very noticeable, right? It's not like a delay. Like a delay, you know, that it's more like this. But if I turn it off, it's so much more like flat and mono. And then this really works. I've got a bit of sidechain and then a high pass filter, and that's it for that chord stab. So that's me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Let me know if you want to see more of this Brat style sort of tutorials. You know, I'm sure there's a lot more I could cover in that world. So definitely let me know. You can get this project file, samples, the MIDI, the presets, everything from this video is available at the top of the description on my website. So make sure to grab that. It really helps support me so I can keep teaching you guys how to do this stuff on YouTube. Thanks for the support, everybody. And I'll see you tomorrow with another video.